Eleanor's Journey, The Weight of Things, a Lifetime of Accumulation. Does the weight of your possessions feel heavier than the joy they bring? For Eleanor Bennett, that question wasn't hypothetical, it defined decades of her life. For 70 years, her home was full of memories, full of objects, full of invisible pressure. Each item told a story, yet together they formed a cage, a constant reminder of a past she couldn't fully inhabit. The rooms echoed with the whispers of yesterdays, from the faded photographs on the mantel to the stacks of yellowed letters in the drawers. Every corner held a piece of her history, but as the years piled on, so did the burden. It wasn't just the physical space that felt cramped, it was her spirit, tethered to things that once sparked delight, but now only gathered dust. This isn't just a story about decluttering, it's about rediscovering freedom, clarity, and the profound peace that comes when life is lived intentionally. It's a tale of shedding layers, not just of belongings, but of emotional baggage that accumulates unnoticed over time. In a world that constantly urges us to acquire more gadgets, more clothes, more mementos, Eleanor's Journey reminds us that true abundance often lies in less. It's a narrative that resonates with anyone who has ever paused in a cluttered room and wondered, how did it come to this? Her story unfolds like the pages of an old diary, revealing the slow buildup of possessions and the courageous unraveling that followed. The early years, collecting comfort. Born in the aftermath of World War II in 1945, Eleanor Bennett grew up in a modest suburban home where scarcity was a fresh memory. The war had taught her parents the harsh lessons of rationing and loss, instilling in them a deep-seated belief that saving everything was not just practical, but a moral imperative. Nothing was wasted, not even the smallest scraps of paper, stray buttons from worn-out shirts, or empty glass jars that once held preserves. Waste not, want not, her parents would intone like a mantra during family dinners, their voices carrying the weight of survival. The lesson was simple, yet profound. Hold on tightly. Every item could prove valuable in an uncertain future. Every possession carried inherent meaning, a safeguard against the unpredictability of life. Eleanor's childhood room in the 1950s reflected that ingrained belief with meticulous care. Marbles were carefully stored in a tin box under her bed, each one a glossy web of color collected from neighborhood games and schoolyard trades. Dolls lined up like silent sentinels on a wooden shelf, their porcelain faces painted with expressions of eternal innocence, dressed in handmade outfits sewn by her mother from leftover fabric scraps. Books with dog-eared pages and spines cracked from repeated readings told countless stories of far-off lands and heroic adventures. Each object was a portal to imagination and escape, the marbles rolling into fantasies of treasure hunts, the dolls enacting elaborate tea parties, the books whisking her away from the drab post-war reality. As Eleanor entered her teenage years in the vibrant 1960s, the world around her exploded with change, and so did her collections. The Cultural Revolution brought rock and roll, civil rights movements, and a sense of boundless possibility. Music became her identity. Vinyl records stacked precariously against the wall in her bedroom, their sleeves adorned with psychedelic artwork from bands like the Beatles and the Rolling Stones. Concert tickets, stubs from local gigs and larger festivals were tucked into notebooks alongside scribbled lyrics and poetry. She believed each item defined her spirit, proving she belonged to a wider, more vibrant world beyond the confines of her small town. Posters on her walls, beaded necklaces in her jewelry box, tie-dye shirts folded in her dresser, all were badges of her emerging self, symbols of rebellion and belonging. Adulthood added new layers to Eleanor's collections. In the 1970s, after marrying her high school sweetheart, wedding china arrived. Delicate porcelain sets with intricate floral patterns, gifted by relatives and rarely used, but preserved with utmost care in a glass-fronted cabinet. Then came the baby clothes in the 1980s, tiny onesies and booties folded neatly in cedar chests, left long after her two children had outgrown them and moved on to their own adventures. Gadgets and trinkets promised to simplify life: a food processor that sat unused after one ambitious Thanksgiving, a collection of kitchen utensils that multiplied like rabbits, and decorative knicky-knacks from vacations that lined every available surface. Her home became a museum of memories, each room brimming with objects that anchored her to moments long past. The living room held framed family photos from holidays at the beach where sandy footprints and laughter seemed frozen in time. The attic overflowed with boxes of holiday decorations, some dating back to her own childhood Christmases. Take the doll from her grandmother, eyelashes now dusty and clumped, dress faded to a pale shadow of its original pink, but still a vessel of unconditional love, evoking memories of afternoons spent in her grandmother's lap, listening to stories of the old country. Or the typewriter from her early career as a secretary in the 1960s, gathering dust in a corner of the study while her fingers had long since danced across modern keyboards. These items were not just possessions, they were fragments of her story, tangible links to people and eras that shaped her. And yet, they demanded energy, attention, and space. Dusting them weekly became a chore that stole hours from her days. Finding room for new acquisitions meant rearranging the old, a constant shuffle that left her exhausted. Slowly, the joy they once brought began to feel overshadowed by their weight. The doll, once a source of comfort, now reminded her of loss. The typewriter symbolized a career phase she'd outgrown, yet parting with it felt like erasing a chapter of her life. The accumulation wasn't intentional hoarding, it was a gradual drift, fueled by sentiment and habit. If you've ever felt that heaviness, that subtle drag on your daily life from the things you own, comment Senior Decluttering Diaries below and share an item that holds a piece of your heart. Perhaps it's a childhood toy, a piece of jewelry from a loved one, or an old letter that tugs at your emotions. Let's connect over these shared anchors.
The tipping point, when enough became too much. The turning point came 15 years ago, in 2010, when Eleanor was 55. Her husband, her partner of 30 years, passed away suddenly from a heart attack, leaving her to face life alone in their sprawling family home. The house, once filled with the sounds of laughter and footsteps, now echoed with emptiness. Downsizing became a necessity. The mortgage was too much for one person, and the maintenance overwhelming. Packing up was like excavating her own history. Every box unearthed joy from happy times, grief from losses endured, and exhaustion from the sheer volume of it all. One crisp autumn day, a simple accident made the emotional weight undeniably physical. While navigating the hallway, she tripped over a teetering stack of old magazines, National Geographics from the 1980s, saved for their educational value but never revisited. She sprained her ankle badly, the sharp pain shooting up her leg as she crumpled to the floor amid the scattered pages. The physical pain mirrored the emotional turmoil. She was literally stumbling through her own clutter, her possessions turning against her in a moment of vulnerability. Clutter isn't always obvious or dramatic like in reality TV shows. It creeps into corners like shadows at dusk, piles on tables disguised as temporary stacks, sneaks into closets behind closed doors, and quietly demands your attention. Keys get lost under piles of unread letters and bills. Floors become precarious pathways dotted with obstacles like forgotten boxes or stray shoes. And what should be a sanctuary of rest feels suffocating like a room with too little air. The mental toll is insidious. Constant low-level anxiety about where things are, guilt over unfinished tasks, and a pervasive sense of overwhelm that colors every day. Her attachment wasn't rooted in compulsion or pathology. It was fear. Fear of waste in a world that had taught her scarcity. Fear of forgetting the people and moments tied to each item. Fear of letting go and facing the void that might remain. Society often labeled such behaviors as hoarding, with its connotations of disorder and excess. But Eleanor knew better. This was habit ingrained from childhood, sentiment woven through decades, and the invisible burden of memory that everyone carries to some degree. Her first attempts at decluttering were chaotic. Bags for donation filled quickly, only to be rescued mid-purge. Every choice carried weight. What if I need this someday, she wondered. Letting go felt like betrayal, yet the process was planting the seeds of transformation. The unpacking of a life, decades of letting go. Decluttering was not a weekend project, it became a companion, evolving as she did. At first, she tackled obvious targets, old papers, worn clothes, duplicates long forgotten. But the rebound was real. New purchases, gifts, and habits crept in, reminding her that this was a lifelong journey. Structure brought progress. The one-in, one-out rule created balance. Later, she adopted the KonMari method, learning to thank each item for its service before releasing it. Over time, she crafted a personal system, seasonal reviews, one room at a time, asking, "Does this spark joy or serve a purpose?" Technology helped too. Checklists and digital archives made the process manageable. The hardest items were never the ordinary ones. Her late husband's tools carried memory, the smell of his workshop, afternoons spent side by side on projects. Letting them go required family support. Her daughter photographed each tool, creating a digital archive. In this way, the essence remained while the weight disappeared. Her children's drawings were another challenge, each scribble a piece of her heart. Digitizing them preserved the memory, turning physical clutter into a lasting archive. Sorting sessions became shared experiences, laughter over old stories, tears over fleeting moments. Friends provided accountability, checking in and offering encouragement. As space cleared, so did her mind. Fewer distractions sharpened focus. Misplaced keys, lost letters, forgotten bills all vanished from daily stress. Mental clarity returned, and with it, energy for hobbies, travel, and volunteering. The act of decluttering became an act of self-liberation. If you've begun this process, comment below, share your biggest emotional hurdle. You are not alone. And subscribe to Senior Decluttering Diaries. Living lightly, the minimalist transformation. By 70, she had transformed her life. Her apartment was open, light-filled, calm. The morning routine was simple: a cup of coffee in one of 3 favorite mugs, a quiet journal moment by the window, and the soft hum of a day beginning without chaos. Her wardrobe fit neatly into one closet. Versatile, timeless pieces, her kitchen held only essentials. Digital subscriptions replaced physical clutter, and every purchase was deliberate. Minimalism was never about deprivation. It was about intention. Each item earned its place, adding value rather than noise. The simple act of living with less brought profound benefits: time, energy, and clarity. Travel, once burdened by packing, became effortless. Volunteering felt joyful. Writing flourished. Each object released created room for experience, for connection, for life itself. Beyond belongings, a legacy of living. Decluttering also strengthened relationships. Family visits were no longer a maze through cluttered hallways. Conversations flowed freely. Her children noticed not only the calm in her home, but the peace in her spirit. The future became lighter too. No mountains of possessions would fall on loved ones when she was gone. She'd given her memories shape, preserving them for herself and her family. Decluttering became her legacy, a gift of order, simplicity, and grace. Now she looks forward. Adventures await, a cruise, volunteering, time for reflection. Her life is lighter, not just in space, but in heart and mind. She asks quietly, "Do your possessions serve you, or do you serve them?" Start small: a single drawer, a single shelf, a single box. Don't chase perfection. Begin today. And when you do, share it in comments below.
Subscribe to Senior Decluttering Diaries and join others taking the first step towards freedom. Because every story of letting go becomes a story of renewal. Every object released creates space for peace, for connection, for the life still waiting to be lived.